r/NoSleep. Posted by you/lifeisstrangemetoo. It's best to be quiet in the woods. Some things don't like being woken up. What are you? The beast responded only with a throaty growl. It opened its mouth to reveal rows of glistening yellow teeth set deep in blood-pink gums. Viscous saliva dripped down from a pair of elongated fangs, and its large, pink tongue folded inside its mouth. Can it even understand me? It looks like a wolf, or a bear. But then, why is walking on two legs? Why is it wearing clothes? The clothes were tattered, dirty, and gave off an abominable stench, a wet, sweet rot that climbed into my nostrils and stayed there. If I run, it will catch me for sure. I took a quavering step back, and the beast roared. The colossal sound sent my heartbeat into a frenzy, and I fell hard to the earth, tearing my dress on a stray tree root that clawed at me from the ground. As I looked at the torn dress, my fear suddenly disappeared. "Go ahead then," I said. "Kill me. Eat me if you must. But please, whatever you do, make it quick. If he finds me here and I've torn my dress, but I could not finish. Some things are just too terrible to speak of." I closed my mind and fought the memories before they overcame me, failed, and collapsed into a pile of hysteria and tears. The beast closed his mouth. He began, then stopped. His voice was dusty from disuse. He cleared his throat and continued. "Who would find you out here? These are my woods, my hunting grounds. No one else would dare venture into this accursed place." "My father would," I said. "He always said if I ran away, he'd follow me to the bottom of the ocean if he had to, and drown, just to wrap his hands around my throat before he died. If he is foolish enough to come into my woods, then die he will. But I think that you will be first." The beast advanced, and I closed my eyes, waited for the teeth. His breath was wet and hot against my face, and drops of thick saliva landed on my neck and ran slowly down. But I was saved for a moment by the sound of a gunshot, followed by a shout. My father's voice. I shuddered. The beast leapt back with a snarl that turned into a low growl. "What is that infernal noise?" he growled. "It's my father," I said. "He brought his gun." "Gun?" said the beast. It was clear he had no conception of what the word meant. It was then that I had an idea. If I was lucky, maybe I could escape them both. "It's a machine men use to make terrible loud noises," I said. The beast's jaw went slack, his blood-pink tongue lolling out the front like a panting dog. "Idiot," he roared. "He's going to wake them up." Lightning fast, the beast bounded over me and took off on a four-legged sprint towards the source of the gunshot. I scrambled to my feet, finding the process near impossible as my legs shook violently beneath me. I ran the opposite way, deeper into the woods. Behind me I heard shouts, 2 gunshots and a wolf-like howl of pain. A second of silence, then a wild snarl and the scream of my father, cut short by a wet ripping sound. I ran, and ran and ran. But it seemed as if roots sprang up out of nowhere to trip me up, and sudden gusts blew branches to thwack across my face. One such gust sent me tumbling over backwards, slashing my arms and legs to bloody pieces on the undergrowth. I sat for a moment, stunned. All around me the tree roots had begun to twist like snakes. Gnarled fingers stretched from hanging branches, reaching out to touch me. It was only then that I understood what the beast had said moments before he ran to stop my father. The trees had woken up. The next story of this video. Posted by you/lifeisstrangemetoo. I should be dead now, but they won't let me die. If you were only given 18 months left to live, what would you do? Would you fall into depression and waste the last bit of your life staring at your phone while lying on your bed? Would you do every single thing you had on your bucket list? Would you spend as much time as you had with the ones you loved the most? Around 3 years ago, I was told by the doctor that I had 18 months left. The first emotion I felt was just shock. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. After the shock wore off, I honestly didn't feel sad. My life was complete shit before, and knowing that it would come to an end was something I could come to terms with. I lost the person I loved the most. I didn't have parents that cared about anything going on in my life. That fact was proven when they showed almost no emotions when I broke the news to them. Of course, my ex-wife didn't care about me. I guess I was such a boring person that she cheated on me with 3 different people throughout our 2-year marriage. The child I thought was mine, I learned wasn't, after the divorce was settled. Why and how am I still alive after 3 years? Let me explain. I don't really have anything better to do right now anyway. 6 months after the news, I was sitting at a bar drinking alone. It was relatively empty. There was one bartender and 3 others including myself. It was around 11 when someone else walked into the bar. He looked around and despite there being dozens of empty seats, he sat next to me. I was a bit annoyed, but not wanting to start any unnecessary fights, I continued to silently drink my whiskey and coke. While I was taking my last sip I felt a tap on my shoulder before he asked, "You look like you're knocking on death's door, my man. Brighten up. Things tend to work out for the better." Without skipping a beat, I retorted back with as much venom as I could produce. "Don't say things you don't understand. I look like I'm dying because I am, and I don't have anything else to do besides drink and hope that I die sooner." I expected him to apologize, hell, I even expected him to lash back, but he didn't. He laughed. Not even a small chuckle, a full-blown laugh. Thrown back a little, I instinctively gave him a confused look. He shook his head a bit before saying, "You know what? I was on the same boat. I was given 6 months left to live, and being depressed out of my goddamn mind, I tried to do anything to reduce the amount of time I had left." He swirled his drink a little, took a sip, and continued. "I was like that for the first 4 months, but then, I found a secret. A secret that kept me alive, as well as, gave me a reason to keep living." He stopped talking and stared off into space while continuing to play with the now empty glass. After a long silence, curiosity got the best of me and I blurted out, "Well, what is it?" Without saying a word, he got up from his chair and started to walk out of the bar. He motioned me over with his hand before exiting. He was leaning on the side of my car. I don't know if he knew it was my car or if he just didn't give a shit. Either way, I walked up to him and almost in a whisper he asked me, "Would you kill a person that deserved to die if it meant resulting in you gaining the years that they had left?" "What?" was the only response my slightly inebriated mind could come up with. "Here, let me explain it to you a little more thoroughly, but first, we have to go somewhere a bit more private." Right after he said that the back of my head exploded with pain, and I blacked out. When I came to, I woke up in a room that I could only explain as, painfully white. Everywhere I looked, it was the same shade of painfully bright white. I tried to get up, but it was only then that I realized I was chained to the bed. I had limited movement and every time I tried to break the chains I heard a high-pitched beep, and I would be hit with a small shock of electricity. After what seemed like hours of waiting on the bed, feeling absolutely defeated, the man walked through the door, spread his arms out wide and said, "Welcome to your new paradise. A new life. A life where you will never want to end. My name is Q, and I will personally be your mentor." A couple of years ago, this organization was formed by the sacrificed blood of the evilest people found on Earth. You may be wondering what helps us continue living while the bad continue to die at a rapid pace, but I have an answer to that. A really long answer that would take hours to explain, but I have a better idea. He clapped twice and 2 men walked in with a man tied up from head to toe with a thick rope. The man wasn't even struggling, and when I looked into his eyes, all I saw was a mixture of guilt and defeat. Q walked over to the man and stared at him for a couple of seconds before he said, "Guys, bring the wires. It's time we show the new recruit what we do around here." Both of the men walked out and within seconds, walked back in with 2 wires, one red and one green. Q grabbed one side of the wires and placed them on my chest. I tried struggling, but I could hardly move an inch from where I was laying. The other side of the wires had long needles at the end of them. Each of the needles went inside the tied-up man's chest. The guy didn't even let out a sound as the long needles slid deeper inside of his flesh. He just sat there with the same defeated look on his face. For a while, nothing happened. Silence. I could even hear the sharp breaths from the other occupants inside of the room. I could hear the calm deep breaths from the man that was on the other side of the wires, and I could hear my own breath. My short, rigid, nervous breaths. Q was the first to break the long silence. "Don't worry about him. He had it coming and he knows it. After all, who would want to live after taking the lives of his own children? Fucking meth heads. You never know when they'll snap, hell, you won't even know what they'll do if they do snap." Tears started to drop down from the man's eyes. They fell past his cheeks and stopped when they hit the rope that was around his neck. He whispered, "Please. Just kill me. I don't want to take another breath. You promised my death would be quick." Q gave him a smile that looked sympathetic and with a soft voice half muttered, "It's starting soon. You'll feel your life slowly drifting away. Don't worry. You may be a piece of shit, but I know how you feel about what you did now. Your death will be painless. It'll feel like you're drifting off to sleep." Just as Q said his last words, I felt a sensation I never felt before. like calm electricity surging into my chest. The sensation became stronger by the second, and in under 10 seconds I was completely overtaken by the feeling and blacked out. When I woke back up, I saw the other two guys dragging the corpse away. What was once the man that was connected to me by 2 wires, was now what seemed to be a hollow shell. His skin was sunken in dozens of spots throughout his body. Smoke was floating off his body, and the smell of cooked meat hit my nose. Almost a sweet sort of meaty smell. Something was different, though. I felt better than I have ever felt before. Every bad feeling I had before was gone, and without even checking myself in the mirror, I knew I was completely healed. That was the first experience I had. One of thousands. I'm getting a bit tired now, but I promise I will keep you all updated.